Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of APB. A very good episode. This episode, we got introduced to Joe, aka Gideon's dad, which I wasn't expecting that. Like, obviously, his dad got brought up, was it like in the first or second episode? He kind of casually brings up his dad. In fact, him and his dad don't get along. But I was like, I don't know, it seemed like something that was kind of like a later season type of thing, because I bring this up all the time. Like, that's what I like the most about stories. More specifically, like, when it's a new series or something, that's what I love the most, is learning about these characters. That's what's the most interesting aspect of a show. Is like, to me, a show is a success when you have amazing characters, which this show already has introduced some very interesting characters. You kind of got to know their personalities and stuff like that. So I'm always invested in characters, and I always love, diving into their background. And obviously Gideon's got a background that you want to dive into. Granted, you want to dive into everyone's background, but I just wasn't expecting it to be this episode, like this soon, to be type of situation where you dive this early into. I thought it'd be like later, at the very least later on this season, but nevertheless, I'm not complaining about it. I just thought that was kind of interesting. It kind of took me by surprise, because I was like, I see Joe at the beginning, I'm like, oh man. I was like, oh man, he's gonna be like the victim or whatever, because he's like scamming some guy he shouldn't be. It turns out to be this like big time dude named Leo, but could get to that soon enough. But then he got away. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how this all gonna play out. It's like, and then Counter is like, oh yeah, you gotta come meet this guy. I was like, what's this about? I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna act as an informant. He's trying to turn on him and everything. And he's like, oh, the moment he walks in, Gideon's kind of looking at him. I was like, wait a minute, he's like, oh, hey, son. I was like, wait, what? So obviously, like, we get to see where Gideon comes from. His dad is kind of a slimy dude. He basically kind of does scams on people. This whole situation, basically, he was kind of like the money man for this big time kind of crook dude named Leo Moretti. And for Leo, basically, Leo would give him like $15,000, but basically he'd place bets for Leo, but he'd only use $13,000 and kind of pocket the other $2,000. Eventually, they caught on to it, and so basically, he wants to act as an informant for the 13th district, and which Gideon immediately sees through as like, yeah, but you're just using us because it's like, Leo found you out and it's basically wants you dead. So now you're wanting us to help take down Leo. You're like, oh yeah, he's a bad guy and everything. But it's mainly so you can take care of the guy that's chasing after you. And which, Leo's like, oh, why do you have such a low opinion of me? Which, as you see throughout the episode, like, Gideon has a very, very low opinion of his dad. Does not want to do this one bit. The fact is seeing them arguing back and forth. But for Murphy, it's like, this is a really bad guy. It's like, yeah, I get it. Your dad's just playing us. I can easily see that. But at the same time, it's like, if it means being able to take down this guy, then we need to, because no one else is willing to be an informant to kind of turn on him or whatever, because everyone was just scared of him, because the last guy that was going to turn on him got beat up really badly. So it's a situation that basically, to kind of get him in the front door without Leo trying to kill him, Gideon has to give him like $25,000 to kind of cover, make up for the money that he's been stealing from him, and kind of add more of a more to it to kind of sweeten it, to kind of make it like kind of make them a little even. Which the fact is that Gideon's like, yeah, okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get, like, he wants to keep track of his dad, because once again he does not trust his dad, to the point he's like getting wants to get an anklet a tracking anklet, but it's like, that'd be too big, people would notice it. So it's like, okay, we're just gonna modify something and kind of make one. And it's kind of like, and you have Peter being like, Gideon, are you serious? You're about to spend like $500,000 on a tracker just to make sure you get back the $25,000 you're loaning your dad for this? He's like, it's about the principle. It's like, that's a very costly principle. I mean, in this particular situation, you kind of understand Gideon's mentality of like, no amount of money is too much when it comes to my dad. It's like, because it's more so because it's like, I need to make sure he doesn't screw me over. Yes, $25,000 isn't much to me because I'm like super rich, but the fact of the matter is, the fact is I don't trust my dad. The fact is, even Gideon would feel the same way if he was loaning him $20, just because it's like, I know who you are, you're a scammer and everything. What I like about Joe too is the fact is he has a very he has a silver tongue that basically, he's up there talking to Leo. He's trying to make Leo he's like, oh, Leo, the fact of the matter is, yeah, I took that money from you, but it's because I was doing investments for you and I want to give it to you face to face. And I love Gideon being like, yeah, that's my dad for you. He can literally make you think he did you a favor by stealing your money from you. It's like, yeah. Even Conrad kind of comments on it later on, just like, your dad's very good. It's like, oh, you can see now my dad is just the king of BS. And it's just like he can turn a situation like on the flip of a dime, like turning things more in his favor. Because later on in the episode, like basically set up this whole deal that basically they exchange money for like diamonds, and basically he wants 500,000, which Gideon fronts up the money. But then it's like, oh, my dad turns around and steals it, and this is all after the whole conversation of, you know, Murphy and Conrad being like, yo, talk to your dad. Obviously, Murphy's got her situation where she talks about her cousin, who was kind of into some shady stuff, kind of got into like selling drugs and stuff like that. Ended up dying because they had such a big difference of opinion. They never saw eye to eye. They'd always fight. She never got a chance to kind of just, it's like, yeah, you don't agree with what they're doing, but at least settle the beef because you're family, and you know life is very short. But she never got the opportunity. And Conrad's talking about him and his dad's like, when I was younger, me and my dad had problems, but the fact is we're older now. I'm older now, and the fact is we're tight. You know, the fact of the matter is it's just kind of appreciate that. It's like, yeah, you might have problems now, but eventually that could turn into something, you know, later on down the road, you guys could be laughing about this in like 20 years from now or something like that. So, but immediately after all that conversation, because Gideon's just getting tired, it's like everyone telling me to talk to my dad, to be on good terms with my dad. It's like, I don't want to be, my dad's a douchebag, my dad's slimy, he's a crook. But then, you know, it turns out he, even more so, it's because he kept warning everyone, don't trust my dad, don't trust my dad. It's like, oh, Gideon wasn't wrong to see the worst, because the moment he turns around, you have him stealing the money, and he's proving how smart he is, because, you know, that smarts didn't come from just nowhere. Like, Gideon is smart because his dad is actually really smart. I mean, because even Gideon will admit, like, yeah, he's like literally one of the smartest people I know. The fact is that he got around the tracking monitor, which was, you know, in the form of a watch. He was able to disable that, steal the money, and get out of the precinct. Once again, a combination of him being smart, and the fact is that he's a smooth talker too. So it's like, holy crap. Like I said, you kind of like got to look at where Gideon came from. I mean, to be fair, he kind of ran the whole deal later on in the episode, which I love. The fact is that Gideon has to fly all those little drones. Like, he's so adamant about catching his dad himself that he's the one that's flying it, which he's not really good at flying all four. And you have Pete over there being like kind of switching up every time Gideon almost crashes one because he's flying all four at once. It's like, you could use a little help, but it's like, no, Gideon, it's like, no, I won't be defeated. I won't let my dad get away with this. So I'm going to get him myself. I'm going to catch him myself. So we do see that one of them gets broken, because one of them, like, as the signal dies, it like lands on the middle row and one of them gets run over. I mean, it might be the other two got that, you know, they stopped using, got run over too, but at least that one. So that kind of sucks. But his dad did go through the deal. So there's a part of me that's kind of like, well, at the very least, I think he knew that Gideon would eventually track him down, so it's kind of like he just wanted to get a head start, which kind of using that silver tongue of his, he BS's like Leo. He's like, oh, Leo, I got 400,000. He's like, no, the deal was 500. He's like, no, I thought we came to 300,000. He's like, no, you said 300,000. I said 500,000. He's like, all right, I'm going to tell you the truth. The people I'm making this deal with, they only gave 400,000. 300,000 is for the diamonds. And the fact of the matter is the 100,000 was my fee in all of this. But he's like, I wanted to be upfront with you and give all of you. It's like, holy crap. It's like, it's like, cause even Gideon's like, really? You're in front of Leo, the man that's going to want you dead? Like, I mean, he's likely just to kill you just for the annoyance that you've been. Just take the money on his own and just make the deal himself, not let you be the middle manager in this whole situation. And even at a moment like this, you're still trying to scam 100,000 off of him. It's like, you got to give him props that he does not back down. When he's got his mind set on something, like, he's going to see it through to the end. So, but like I said, it does seem like at the very least he did have I feel like he had the thought that like Gideon and the 13th would, you know, have eventually tracked him down. Maybe I feel like that might have been part of his plan, that he probably calculated that. Maybe he didn't. Because the particular place he chose was interesting too, because it was a place that he took Gideon in the past. So it's kind of like he chose that place specifically. I guess it's also because he felt like it was a place that was easier way to get away, because when it was all said and done, they caught Leo and his boys, but he had, Joe had gotten away, which it got Gideon on multiple levels, I'm sure. For one, it's like his dad's a bad guy and he scammed him. It's like, It's because all throughout his life, because he brings it up, like him and his dad, I've obviously never saw, like always had problems throughout his life. And it's a situation where he went into this situation knowing his dad was going to betray him. So, but still the fact is, I think there was on some level, there was a part of him that was like, maybe my dad won't, maybe I should give him the benefit of the doubt, that maybe he is really trying to do the right thing this time. There's that, but also by the fact is that he got outsmarted by his dad, because it's like he knew it, because there's that part of him that did know his dad was going to do it, but he still couldn't catch his dad. So it just, it's like, Gideon definitely isn't the type of person that enjoys losing. Definitely doesn't enjoy losing to his dad. So once again, it's not even about the money. It's more so than anything. The fact is that his dad is the way he is, and that messes him up. I kind of went over it, like I kind of skimmed over. He brought up some examples of why him and his dad don't get on, because he had brought up that early in the episode, him and his dad have not spoken for 6 years. I can't remember if he said the exact time of how long him and his dad haven't spoken since the very, like, when he first mentioned him, like I said, like in episode 1 or 2. I don't remember, but in this episode he brought it up, and he's like, the reason why they didn't talk in that 6 years is because at a party or something like that, he was convincing two people, board members from Gideon's company, into investing into something that was later on to be revealed. Oh, like he was setting you up to be part of a pyramid scheme. And it's like, wow. And that moment, Gideon just got tired of it. Because Gideon's like, all throughout my life, it's just been disappointment after disappointment when it comes to his dad. He even brings up the fact is that his dad had that whole conversation, like, oh, I helped you get into MIT. The fact of the matter is, he breaks it down until it was like, Murphy, the fact is his mom, she died when he was in high school. Basically, she set up a life insurance policy so that it could pay for him going to college. But his dad blew it on a quote-unquote sure thing. And Gideon, just to spite him, because Gideon was so mad because he had the thought of just like, I just want to get away, built a rocket. He ended up selling that rocket, and that's what funded his trip to college. And what makes it even more interesting is he goes like, in my dad's twisted logic, that means that he helped me out, because it's like, yeah, that he put you in a position where you could rise to the occasion and help yourself, essentially. I mean, obviously Gideon didn't put in so much words, but I feel like that's how he could also like be like, oh yeah, I helped you in this way. I helped better you. He does get a call from his dad at the end of the episode, and his dad's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, son. We both knew it was going to end like this, but he's just like, I just wanted to let you know. The fact is, I'm proud of you for everything that you've done. I want you to know that I love you. I'm proud of you because you're not like me. I'm a screw up, but you're going off and doing fantastic things. Which at the same time, like, if you want to be very pessimistic about it, you almost be like, it's almost like a victory lap that he's doing. Like, it's almost like he's laughing in your face a little bit. He's calling you up to be like, oh, I won. Obviously, he meant it. It's obviously meant to be heartfelt. But like I said, if you want to be super depressing, like pessimistic about it, you could look at it that way, playing devil's advocate in the situation. I did like the fact that what he told Gideon and told Murphy. He's like, I'm actually a lot more to. She's just like, well, you didn't grow up to be like your dad. He's like, well, didn't I? The fact of the matter is, he's like, I convinced you that I can run a police precinct. So it's like, obviously, I'm kind of a scammer just like my dad. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He put it like that. But there was also like another side story to this episode, and that dealt with Brandt and Goss dealing with a car stealing situation. I thought that was going to come up a lot more. The lady with the bat, thought that was going to play a little bigger role, but it's like, no, it was just kind of the catalyst that started their investigation. Basically, there's this boy named Luke who was stealing cars, not just this lady's car. He basically has stolen like 2 other cars. The lady had noticed it because it's like 3 cars had been stolen in the time since he had moved in. But it turns out he's not just like any regular kid. He has a mental condition. He doesn't really 100% understand the ramifications of what he's doing, because he's very fascinated in cars. So it's a situation of like, he likes something and that's all he focuses on. He doesn't think about the consequences to what he's done. And he ended up stealing like a crap ton of cars. For him, it's not even like he's trying to sell them or anything like that. It's more so like, oh, this is my collection of cars. He even fixes them up because he's like, some of the people didn't take care of the cars right. And like, because he loves cars and is so obsessed with them. It's a situation where it's a sad situation, because it's like, he's a kid. He doesn't really realize what he's doing. But the fact of the matter is, he stole a lot of cars. They were saying like it could equal up to about 30 years in prison. And his mom's crying like, please don't let this happen. But Goss gets the idea. She's like, well, the fact of the matter is, he's very good at stealing cars. So I was like, at the very least, we can find a workaround. So basically, they're kind of give him a plea deal type of situation. basically every day after school for like, I think they're saying like for 36 months, because he's so good at breaking into cars. He has to help them kind of like, it's like, oh, testing out cars and, you know, coming up with new measures like of how to prevent people from breaking into cars because he's super smart and very good at it. So, you know, that was good. It was just like a little side story that I really thought was kind of interesting. I mean, I also love the tie-in of the fact is that Brent has to deal with the humiliation of the fact is that while he was chasing Luke, initially he jumped and fell into a dumpster. I was like, they caught that in recording, didn't they? Because they went out of their way to remind you that they are recorded when they were running, and it kind of switched to like the vest camera. And I was like, all right, oh, you got her. And then Ada kept playing it on repeat, and everyone's cracking jokes at him about it. So I felt kind of bad for him about that. But like I said, overall, a very good episode. Obviously, both sides of the story. I'm very interested to see, will we have any future interactions with Luke? Will there be any situation where we see Gideon's dad in the future? Maybe not, especially after what he's done now. He's kind of burned that bridge, so there's no like, well, he took that 100,000 and he's kind of off on his own. So I'm sure there's a situation where it's like Gideon dislikes his dad a lot, but there is a part of him that wants to mend that, because it's like they're all they have. They don't have anyone else. I mean, we don't really know much about his, you know, extended family, like any grandparents or anything like that, people from his mom's side of the family. But, you know, it's like they only have each other when it comes to the Reeves family. So it's kind of like, might as well fix that. But it's obviously, it's not just a recent thing. It's a combination of stuff that's going on over the past couple of years, so it's not going to be the easiest thing to fix. But it does seem like Gideon might be willing to try, but it's like I said, I don't know. We'll kind of have to see. Like, I feel like in this situation, it'll probably have to be something drastic that brings Joe back here, because obviously it looks like he's probably off, probably someplace without extradition or something like that, or very least it's not easy to track him, because once again, Joe is pretty smart, so he knows that when he was talking to Gideon, immediately to toss the phone, because he knew that Gideon was smart and would eventually track him down. So it's like, why gonna get caught up in that? So, you know. But overall, a very, very good episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.